I apologize for the mystery. You're not in any trouble. I just thought you should be somewhere safe when you found out. Everything's fine. You'll be fine.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's an awful thing he did to them.
3, 4.
I don't mean to scare you. I'm just gonna hold you here for a little while. And let you breathe.
In a world where podcasts reign supreme, two friends dare to ask, do you even movie? Hosted by filmmaker Henrique Couto and movie aficionado David D. Neuer. Spoiler alert.
So, David.
So, Hen.
How's the Lonely Hearts Club?
Lonely and heartful.
What does that mean?
I don't even know.
That's good. That's good. It's best that it be ambiguous.
Yeah. Ambiguous or empty at this point.
Well, that got fucking dark.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, great job.
Way to go with the movie tonight, though.
Well, I mean, tonight's movie is a story about true love and where it'll take you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's it.
I mean, it is.
It is.
So.
It is, but yeah.
But before we talk about that, geez, we just saw Love Hurts.
Yes, we did.
Which, you know, I mean, we're recording this right before actual Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And, yeah, there were a lot of couples at the theater in line.
There was.
And none of them.
For Companion, it looked like.
Yeah, they were all going to Companion.
Yeah.
A lot of really young folks.
Which I think, honestly, I think we've seen every single Valentine's Day available in theaters now because we've seen Companion, Hard Eyes, and Love Hurts.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as Love Hurts goes, action, comedy.
Absolutely.
In theory, romance.
Somewhat, yes. My biggest issue with Love Hurts was the title made sense, but the romance aspect of it did not. Or didn't hit, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think so.
Oh, Hateful Dave.
You said the same thing in the car. What are you talking about?
Well, no, my problem with Love Hurts, and I hate being harsh, but the whole film came off as really, really half-baked.
Unbalanced.
Well, I mean,
tonally and
exactly. Like
yeah.
what happens when something's half-baked? Like some of it's all mushy and still whatever, and then the other part's spongy and nice.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was very comfortable being a comedy or an action movie.
Mm-mm.
And infinitely uncomfortable being a romance story.
Entirely.
Zero chemistry between the lead and his romantic interest. Although it's not like they had a chance. They're in like the room together like 3 times.
3 times of that, yeah.
And yeah, there's not a lot going on there.
No. I mean, it's basically the classic story of you don't know who you're messing with again, but at the same time, like it's a story we've seen 1,000 times before.
Well, but this version is a little different. Like he's not hiding because he's a former hitman.
Yeah.
But he's not like hiding from the people he used to work with. They know that he's out.
Yeah.
They let him leave or whatever.
Have his life. Yeah.
But he gets dragged back in because the woman he loves was, he was ordered to kill her.
Yeah.
And although I guess they weren't dating.
There was
just
never
was in love with her.
Really any hint of romance. It was basically that he let her go. Spoiler alert. He let her go.
Oh, that's like, we know that pretty much immediately.
He let her go. I mean, you really can't spoil the movie except for like the one death that actually affected us.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of my point about it being kind of half-baked. Like, it's kind of like, you ever listen to interviews where Jackie Chan says like what movies he says no to?
Mm-hmm.
it's very much the kind of movie Jackie Chan would say no to.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan often says, like, I don't want movies that are overly violent. I don't want movies that are overly, like they're overly violent, too much murder or whatever.
Too much. I think he says for the most part, like murder for murder's sake. Like it's just basically just to up a body count.
Well, and if you watch a Jackie Chan movie, I mean, for the most part, if anybody dies, it's a big deal in a Jackie Chan movie. Aside from like that movie where he played the villain or whatever, those are very different. We're talking
The Foreigner.
like the Foreigner, which I like The Foreigner.
It was good. It was dark.
It was cool seeing him play a villain.
Yeah.
But he was also like for lack of a better term, a righteous villain.
Yeah.
He had been horribly wronged. His daughter, I believe, had been killed.
Yeah.
And he was basically on a warpath for vengeance.
Yeah.
That was self-destructive on purpose.
Yeah.
And he knew it. And it wasn't a surprise to the audience.
No, and it really wasn't an action film either. It had action sequences.
Yeah, no. I mean, it has a few stunt scenes.
It was a drama.
But with Love Hurts, I wanted to like it a ton, but it felt like the components they had were sparse. They were just like, we want, what's his name? The actor.
Kiko.
What was it? Kiko. They wanted him to star in an action movie, and they wanted him to like be a badass. And they got a well-known stunt fight coordinator to be the director for his feature film debut, a guy by the name of Jonathan Esebuyo. I don't know if Eusebio.
That's what it looks like to me. Yes.
But so you have Kiko Kwong, and he's this kind of dorky average guy, which he's really great at playing.
Great at that,
This is like. This is the worst thing we're going to get from Everything Everywhere All at Once being a hit.
Yeah, I could say that.
And I mean that with love, because Everything Everywhere All at Once was amazing, and it showed what an incredible actor he was.
Yeah.
It showed how endearing he could be and what range he could have.
Yeah.
But then you watch Love Hurts, and I guess the biggest problem, if I had to really dig into my psyche, would be the love interest is very unlikable. Because the whole concept is that she was allowed to not get assassinated.
Yeah.
And then what does she do? She comes back a while later and shows up in his life and is like, I can't keep hiding, and you shouldn't hide from your brother either.
And also I want money.
And she wants money, although there's more to it.
There's a lot more to it.
Well, kind of. But what ends up happening is she shows up in his life and literally starts just ruining people's lives.
Yeah.
Unrelated. There's an immense amount of varying degrees of collateral damage. Some were very out of place in a comedy.
It was one of those movies where you have amazing action sequences. I mean, some of those fights are incredible and insanely brutal. But then your murder count for like actual like main characters is like 2.
Yeah, and only the characters that are nice.
Yeah.
Only the characters that literally did nothing wrong whatsoever.
Even our villain, spoilers, technically doesn't get murdered on screen at least.
Yeah. Well, from the way the first fight scene went, I assumed just nobody was going to get murdered. That it was going to be one of those, which is very Jackie Chan-esque.
Yeah.
That like you just don't kill anybody. But then this whole thing where his love interest is like, I want the real you to come out or whatever. And then she's so happy when he starts like
becoming vicious.
Well, because he kills like henchmen.
Yeah.
Toward the end.
Yeah.
And she's like so happy. And all I'm thinking is like, I thought that his whole character development was that was bad.
Yeah.
And he hated that. But now it's like, I'm so glad you're back. Like, that's who I needed. The vicious murderer. She came off really unlikable because all she did was show up and wreck everything.
No, I agree. I think my biggest issue with it was it didn't feel like it really ever gave us anything that we didn't get in like the first 10 minutes.
Well, and if they wanted to get that across in a way that was a little bit more entertaining, they could have had it be one-sided. Like he's really in love with her and she's callous. That could have been a good like growth moment if it was like, he realizes like, you don't care about me very much, do you? But no, it's supposed to be a love story. They're supposed to actually be in love.
Yeah.
And all I could think the whole movie was, man, his life was so great. I remember about halfway through the film when it turns out his brother, again, not a big spoiler, his brother is the person who's like running. Yeah, Knuckles. He's running the organization he used to work at.
Yeah.
And once you start to see what's going on and all this, my first thought was really like, man, this our main character, he would have had such a good life if he just murdered that woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like
probably.
And apparently he had killed dozens before as a hitman.
Well, and that was the thing too, was you had so many different main villains to stack up to your actual top dog, and it was just and I didn't have an issue with that in regards of just like learning who those people were, but it was just like they amounted to nothing. They were just names
for the most part. I mean, we had a few that got some development, but that
everybody was against everybody.
It wasn't a terrible movie.
No,
it was a fun time.
82, 83 minutes. I mean, you're in and out for one.
Yeah, but I could definitely understand why audiences were not coming to see Love Hurts at our theater. They were there to see Companion.
Like you and I said, it's a movie where you can definitely tell studio involvement heavily, because I don't think an 83-minute movie was the original idea.
I mean, it might have been.
It might have been, but
I mean, the other thing was that there was a lot of moments that were predicated by voiceover, which made me feel like maybe the movie was a big mess and they were trying to make it make sense.
Yeah. And not just one voiceover, multiple character voiceovers.
Well, it was just him and the woman.
There was Knuckles had a couple too.
Oh, okay. No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. He did.
Yeah.
But they were he was like in a room with somebody. It didn't feel quite as as opposed to like the leading man and the leading lady were like laying in bed, and it's just it felt more like a voiceover as opposed to like a monologue.
Genuinely, I would have probably enjoyed it just a little bit more if the first 10 minutes would have been him telling the story that we kind of saw spread throughout the movie. I think if we would have been like, I used to do this, blah 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 blah, and like go through all his run-ins and everything like that, and then it's just like, but now I live this quiet life.
Well, I think that what they were going for was you find out as we go. And I think because he's so likable and because he seemed to be a legitimately changed person, because that's the other thing. It wasn't like those other, you don't know who you're messing with movies where it's like, oh, the badness was always still in me and it always wanted to get out.
Yeah.
Like there was never a moment when he was working as a mild mannered real estate agent where like he like resisted the urge to like punch somebody or tackled somebody and like or even raised his voice.
Shit, I just realized something. The big death that we talked about, we're not going to spoil, but the other one is the realtor dude.
Yeah, he's barely in the movie at all, and all he does is try to help.
Yeah.
And not only try to help, he tries to help like his number one competitor. So he's literally like not a jerk at all.
No.
Well, and not only that though, like,
and I'm not even sure he was a property brother.
And he dies like really violently.
Yeah, no, he absolutely does. We actually see inside his head.
Yeah, he gets his brains blown out. Meanwhile, like the killers who are like, just nonstop killers get like a lot of love. I don't know. Maybe
Drew Scott, it totally was a property brother.
I'm not familiar with
Property Brothers are a reality show. It's two twin brothers that sell realty.
Oh,
that was Drew Scott. That was one of them.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But since we, Love Hurts, it's fine, but we could also talk about the movie that we really did enjoy this past weekend.
Oh,
Hard Eyes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Happiness.
I haven't watched it in a while.
Well, Valentine's Day is right around the corner.
I got to get that Criterion Blu-ray at some point.
Yeah, you do. No, we
actually, 4K, I think.
We did check out Hard Eyes.
Yes, we did.
Which was a really fun Valentine's Day horror movie.
Done by Josh Rubens, who, if you're not familiar with the name, he is the man who gave us so far Scare Me and Werewolves Within.
Yes, two very good movies.
Very good.
In my opinion, Scare Me is his best film to this day.
It's kind of neck and neck with me for Werewolves Within, because Werewolves Within, that twist, like I texted you when it happened.
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
good.
That's so good.
No, it was great. It's just Scare Me. There was something about the honest simplicity
of telling stories.
It's literally a guy and a girl in a cabin, and they're both writers who are vaguely competitive with each other.
Yeah.
And they end up just trying to scare each other by telling them a story that they're developing, which I thought was the friggin' coolest concept.
It was a cool concept.
And I loved it. I absolutely adored it. But nothing against Werewolves Within or Hard Eyes.
Yeah.
They were both really fun. Hard Eyes, I was very surprised to find myself feeling like was very influenced by early 2000s slasher movies.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and not just Valentine, which is kind of the obvious comparison, but it was similar to Valentine in a lot of ways. But also It reminded me a lot of like Black Xmas. It reminded me of Sorority Row.
House of Wax.
Yeah, where it had this very slick look to it.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that. The characters were all a little catty, like a little extra catty, and like to where it was like, if you dialed it a little bit more, it would be unbelievable. But they always reeled it in just in time. Just when you thought like, oh, this person's a caricature of a person, and then they would do something and be like, oh, okay, no, I believe that they're real. Aside from like a few of the sillier slasher victims. But I mean, a lot of slasher victims are going to be relatively one-dimensional.
And going to Hard Eyes, the overall design of the Hard Eyes killer, I thought was really cool. I thought just creating that character, creating that slasher film, and then we live in this slasher film now where this character has been killing people for years now.
Yes.
On Valentine's Day. I love the concept of it, but I think what I really liked about Hard Eyes most was, we go from Love Hurts that had very bad chemistry. Hard Eyes had really good chemistry between the two leads.
Yeah, they had great chemistry to the point where it almost pissed you off.
Yeah.
Like they were so likable, and that's kind of the thing that made me love it even more is it kind of, in a twisted way, works as a rom-com.
Yeah.
It definitely works as a slasher movie, and it works as kind of a comedy as well.
Yeah.
It works as all three simultaneously, and the only one that loses out the most is rom-com, which makes sense because rom-com doesn't merge very well with horror comedy.
And I've seen a bunch of people commenting that it had too much rom-com in it for them.
Without spoiling, it had some very ballsy choices that I loved. It had moves where it did not give you what horror fans would expect, which I think is what they deserve, is to not be given exactly what they're always expecting again and again.
I think the key too was they gave us a lot of red herrings, which kept us wanting to guess who the killer was throughout the movie.
Yeah, but the red herrings even were a little winky.
They were winky,
like,
but
in a fun way.
They were winky, but at the same time, I didn't call the movie. Like I didn't call who the killer was until probably about like 20 minutes.
Well, they did that thing where they left you plenty of suspicion.
Yeah.
But then they made it more complex in order to make it pay off better, which I thought was great.
Well, and also I love the tropes, the romantic comedy tropes that they do, like the running to the train station or airport. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That whole fake out was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So no, Hard Eyes was probably one of my top 3 of the year so far, even though we're only in February.
I was gonna say, so what are your other 3? Because we've only seen like 6 movies for
Companion and Flight Risk.
Flight Risk was so much fun.
Yeah.
Companion, bar none though, top Valentine's Day movie, and it will be in the box office as well. Yeah. I mean, it already is pretty much. But Hard Eyes, ton of fun.
No, absolute blast.
And I would love to see it do better. It's right now not doing great. Maybe it'll upswing during Valentine's Day. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because you could say like, well, it's not going to upswing at Valentine's Day because, it's such a guy movie. I mean, it's all slasher, bloody and stuff. It's like, no. The girls want to take their guys to see the movie about the sex robot murdering everybody. You see what I mean? It's kind of funny.
I'm just happy that we have the holiday horror in 2 of them in theaters this year, basically.
Yeah.
We haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, we really haven't, especially on Valentine's Day. Well, I feel like it's been tried.
Yeah.
And I mean, even My Bloody Valentine, I mean, that was a long time ago. Then the remake did not pull big numbers, I don't think. It might have.
It might have. I think the 3D really killed it, actually.
I mean, I saw it in 3D in the theater.
I saw it 3D opening night,
Yeah, now I'm curious. But my point is, really my main point is, I would like it to do well because, and this is something a lot of my friends, especially my horror fan friends, don't want to hear. Slasher movies don't do well in the box office.
Don't.
And haven't for quite a while, unless it's literally Halloween or pretty much just Halloween.
I mean, it's a big pull for that name, obviously.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean horror movies haven't been pulling. I mean, a lot of what Blumhouse has come up with, especially now what Neon has come up with. But like the biggest slasher hit we've had in a while that wasn't an immediate remake or whatever was what was that movie? The one where we followed the killer the whole time?
Oh, Violent Nature.
Violent Nature?
In a Violent Nature.
In a Violent Nature. It did pretty well. I liked it. It was fine. It was a fun one. It wasn't, it was thought out really well.
It was fine.
I didn't love the ending.
Yeah.
But that being said, man, Salty Dave is here, ladies and gentlemen.
I really wanted to like In a Violent Nature, but I got bored after a bit.
There were parts that were kind of boring. And I mean, for me, it gets a little harsh watching people die horribly. Oh yeah, My Bloody Valentine 3D was a huge hit.
I was gonna say I thought it was
$100 million against a $14 million budget.
I was gonna say I thought it was big.
Good. Well, and yet it didn't get a sequel, which is a real shame.
Yeah.
Why not?
They set it up. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know the story with the ending of My Bloody Valentine, don't you? Oh, there were 5 different endings shot, and they didn't tell the actors which one they were going to use, so they didn't know who the killer was going to be.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like how Scream, they didn't release the last 3 pages till like the last possible second.
Yeah, well, that's because the fucking script got leaked so much.
Yeah, well, and scripts were getting, that was the internet was fresh.
Yep.
So it was like the Usenet groups.
Yep.
Ah, Usenet. But no, so I mean, unfortunately, like slasher movies just haven't been able to really kick. Now, then you could say, like, what about Terrifier 3 and Terrifier 2? Sure. But those are like
special circumstances.
Well, they're outliers.
Yeah.
But here's the problem with that. And the reason I'm kind of like, damn, I wish slasher movies would get that little resurgent boost is when a real deal hit happens in a genre. That genre tends to become, the genre, not the movies, tend to become really popular.
Yeah.
So with Terrifier 2 doing really well and then 3 doing really well, it was like Terrifier 2's huge success really just made Terrifier 3 a huge success.
Yeah.
It didn't cause a boom of slasher movies.
No.
Like Conjuring caused a boom of ghost movies. Paranormal Activity caused a boom of found footage ghost movies.
Yeah.
Supernatural movies.
Yeah.
We haven't had that. Like I was hoping when the first Halloween hit, I was like, I hope we just get a friggin' ton of slasher movies. And we had a few try like Hellfest and stuff, and none of them really hit big.
No.
So that's where it gets really tough because I try to see all of this stuff, even if I wouldn't be that into it.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that like I'm first in line to see the Terrifier movies, even though they're not exactly my favorite thing, is because I want to see more stuff like that in the theater. I want to support it.
Yeah.
Love it. I love what it's doing almost as much, if not more than I love exactly what it is, which is also fine. So I don't know. I would love for Hard Eyes to have been a huge hit, and maybe it'll get an upswing. Maybe it'll get good word of mouth.
It'll probably, I bet it'll probably get a lot more attention on VOD, obviously, but I just don't know. I don't know where theater audiences are right now.
I mean, it's a tricky time for theater movies anyway. Like, I'm really curious if that new Blumhouse movie, was it called The Drop? Drop.
Yeah.
I'm really curious how that'll do. It's not a slasher movie, but it's a horror thriller kind of thing. But I think it looks like the kind of thing people would really go out and see.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but unfortunately, it's like with something like Hard Eyes, I'm not hearing a ton of people rave about it on my social media.
I've seen a few. But
me too, just a few, unfortunately, and I'm shocked I'm not seeing more of, especially. My friends and stuff.
I've seen a lot of positive reviews for it on Letterboxd, at least. So, I mean, people are definitely seeing it. But yeah, I think it's one of those movies that the core audience is obviously going to go see it in theaters. But I think at this point, I don't know where the audience is for most movie theaters. Because, I mean, like, just for tonight when we went to go see Love Hurts, we were shocked at how many were there to go see Companion.
Yeah, because we were waiting in line at the snack counter, and there was a giant line. And as people were leaving, I was watching where they were going. They were all going right into the 8 o'clock, or the 8 o'clock Companion.
Yeah.
So, and that's good.
Oh, it's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
And this 2024 was a good year for horror. I mean, you had Immaculate, you had The First Omen. They all did pretty damn good.
I mean,
there were a ton. And then, Late Night with the Devil did really well in theaters. Yeah, Long Legs, Maxine. They were all, and Maxine would be the closest thing to a slasher movie, but it really wasn't a slasher movie. But it's also a part 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So it also gets tricky with it too. X would be a good example of a slasher, but that one I think was the lowest performing of the 3.
I think, yeah.
So it makes me wonder sometimes, before we get to the topic at hand, it makes me wonder sometimes if the issue is horror fans aren't going out to theaters to support, or if the issue is that there just aren't that many diehard horror fans to begin with. I mean, enough to make a movie a $45,000 hit. I mean, Abigail.
Yeah.
Should have been a hit.
I think, honestly, one of the biggest issues, and I ran into this with my roommate, not to throw shade to him, but people don't watch movies a lot anymore. Like, I hate saying it that way, but a lot of people are watching, like, web-based content, influencers, and stuff like that. I'm just telling you, like, it seems like that is kind of a trend somewhat that I'm seeing.
But we had big box office movies.
We did, yeah. But at the same time, I think I don't know. I think it just doesn't seem like the theaters have gone back to what I remember them as being, or what you and I used to see when we would go to like matinee shows and whatnot. Like, it seemed like there was a decent crowd there on Tuesdays for a while, and we just haven't seen one in a bit.
So according to a quick research bit, box office totals in 2024 were $8.56 billion.
Okay.
Down 4% from 2023.
Okay.
I'm not having an easy time finding like
anything else,
like a whole list of them, but I don't think that people going to the theaters is down that much. I mean, granted, we're still recovering from COVID, but we were having slasher movies. But I mean, Hellfest was way before COVID.
Well, way before COVID,
and it just didn't. And I thought that was a fucking blast.
Yeah, but I mean, I do remember our theater for Hellfest seemed pretty packed though too when we went to see it. So sure. I mean, that's the thing is like I feel like it's the biggest draw for a while were Marvel movies, and now everybody's burned out. I don't know a single person that is going to see Captain America this Friday.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, and it may very well bomb.
Yeah.
And Hellfest, because I don't want to sound like I'm picking on it. It did a respectable $18 million against a $5 million budget.
Okay.
But it likely spent
advertising
$5 to $10 million on advertising.
Yeah.
And that is often a problem you have with those films. That's why the Blumhouse method of generally often making them very cheap and then promoting them efficiently is supposed to be like the big way.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my point is like, it seems like for a diehard like slasher horror movie, it's very hard to cross a $20 million box office.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying I wonder if there just aren't enough diehards for that kind of content, because we know what kind of horror is somewhat hot.
Yeah.
And last year it did change a lot, but it didn't change toward like a movie like Late Night with the Devil doing 40 million. It had Late Night with the Devil doing like, I don't know exactly how much, but many millions against a very low budget. And that's what we're seeing a lot of, which I like that. I like the idea of like cheaper movies, but plenty of them in the theaters, lots of opportunities. But I wonder if it's just, what I'm really saying is I wonder if the studios are in denial that you should make an expensive slasher movie and it'll make even more money.
It could be.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, because there's nothing wrong with making a movie that fits a niche that an audience will come out and see. But like Hard Eyes making $8 million in its roughly first week against an $18 million budget.
Yeah.
That's rough.
It's rough.
That's really rough, and I hate to see it because it was a really friggin' fun movie. Oh no, first week. Sorry, I just saw the release date and I forgot what day of the week it is when we're reading this.
Well, and I think too, it goes without saying that we're also seeing a lot of success with the legacy pictures, from the legacy sequels to the new, breakoffs of those.
I mean, only for the last forever.
Yeah, but I mean,
I know what you're saying.
But
sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's where a lot of the audience is going is to those familiar characters and stories and whatnot.
Well, we're like in the remakes.
Yeah.
We're in the remakes that try a little harder to be appealing to the fans.
Yeah.
Which I like. Like, I love David Gordon Green's Halloweens.
The
including Ends. Fight me.
No,
I don't care.
You and me both love
I know you do.
Yeah.
It's just there's secretly another person in the room. They're listening or watching.
Yeah.
But I love those. I thought those were super fun.
Yeah.
I thought what they tried to do with Exorcist, with the new Exorcist,
Coexist.
It was, I mean, I thought what they were trying to do with it was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it just didn't quite have but David Gordon Green was clearly very, very inspired when he made the first Halloween that he did. I mean, like, super inspired.
Yeah.
And that inspiration carried the 3 movies, even when 3 had to change a ton because of COVID and everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My point is, like, I would love to see a slasher movie just clean up at the box office.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even care, but like, if Hard Eyes, just for context, Hard Eyes was awesome, but if it had been made, and I'm not saying they could have made the exact same movie for like $4 million.
True.
But if they made it for $4 million, it would be on its way to being a hit now.
No, it absolutely would.
And while it was an awesome movie to look at and had a lot of great moments, there is a part of me that's like, why did it cost so much?
Names.
And on the other side, like, I also want to make it very clear, like, Josh Rubin is a friggin' baller director, and I hope he got a fat paycheck and didn't take too many points on the back end.
Especially since the house that he and his wife just bought perished in those fires before they even moved into it.
Oh, fuck. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, there's a whole crowdfunding campaign.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, damn.
So
well, way to keep the positivity, Dave.
But my wrap up on that is I really hope that more people do find Hard Eyes. It's if you are a lover of Valentine, Sorority Row, House of Wax, 13 Ghosts, Ghost Ship, any of those like early 2000s, this is exactly that audience.
Well, the problem is a lot of people are just now starting to come around on how fun those movies were because it was very popular to hate on those movies. Very popular. I remember seeing Sorority Row at the Danbury Dollar Saver, rest in peace, and having a blast. Yeah. I was so mad at myself that I didn't see it opening weekend because I wanted to support it.
Opening weekend at the Mayflower when the Mayflower was still open in Troy.
Oh, rest in peace, Mayflower,
too. Rest in peace, Mayflower.
So, I mean, yeah, the cinema experience has definitely changed a lot. I don't think that people are disinterested in going to the movies, but I do think that they're more interested in the experience, which is why you have Maxine and Longlegs and Terrifier 3 being bigger hits. Yeah. That's because people are interested in an experience. They're interested in something that they've never seen before, at least to some extent.
Well, I mean, and some of those retro screenings, like when they did the summer of '84 this past year, and like Last Starfighter, Nightmare on Elm Street, all those theaters were packed.
Some of them were really packed. Yeah.
So I think there's just a point to figure out of what do people still want to see on the big screen, and what are they going to just completely skip the big screen for and wait till streaming? Because
well, and from there's also a really important point, and this is something I was saying back when people were rallying and crying a river against digital projection over 35 millimeter. You probably remember me saying flat out, I was like, but theatrical distribution is going to become so accessible.
Yeah.
I was talking, I was commenting on Bandrew Scott's podcast because Bandrew Says, one of my favorite podcasts. If you're an audio nerd, or really just a nerd in general, his podcast is great. Releases on Sundays. But I had commented because he was talking about he went to see Terrifier 3 and he had an amazing time and all this stuff. And I commented and said, like, keep in mind that before digital projection and digital theater projection being common, you needed a minimum of around $3,000 to make one film print that could go around the country. Yeah. Sometimes way more. You might be able to get the number less, but then you're making hundreds of them.
Yeah.
In the olden days, Roger Corman would make 15 prints and he would start some in LA and some in New York and have them meet in the middle of the country. That was one of his methods. Yeah. He had other methods too. Sometimes he would just start in Mississippi because he knew he'd rake in cash in the drive-ins. And then once the cash came in, he could make even more prints and he'd expand, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now, I mean, we're talking the hard drive isn't even $300 anymore.
No.
I mean, half of the time now they're satellite beaming them to a lot of the especially if they're not showing in 4K.
Well, when I went to see the revival screening of Silence of the Lambs that TCM was putting on, they played it off a DVR.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's being broadcast over satellite. That's how they do riff tracks. That's how they do, and that's how they can do live events too. What they do is that it's kind of like how television stations used to work. How they used to send it over the satellite, and they would just record the satellite stream so that they had the tape in all these places, and then they could air the tape later. It's very similar to that.
Hey, nothing will ever be as great as that Breakfast Club screening we went to.
Oh my God, that was like off a DVD.
It was off of a DVD.
Rough.
It looked bad.
It was so rough. Well, I went to a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles show in, I want to say 2015 or 2016, and it was not a remastered edition.
Hey, nothing will beat that time that we were sitting in a theater that I will not name because they are still in operation today and doing very well, but we went to see a double feature of Halloween and Halloween 2, and I could tell what they were playing because the menu kept recycling and recycling.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh. Well, that theater was under different owners then.
Yeah, it was, but but I remember that.
Well, I mean, what do you want? I remember one time the drive-in. Did I ever tell you that story? One time,
with Evil Dead.
When I was going to the drive-in back when my buddy Bill was the manager at the Dixie Twin, and they were doing like the classic of the first Friday of October or last Friday of October or whatever. It was Halloween. Halloween
Texas Chainsaw.
No, it was Halloween, Friday, and Nightmare on Elm Street. And the second night was Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw, and I want to say The Hills Have Eyes.
I think it was Evil Dead 2. I feel like it was Evil Dead 2.
Well, they did it a few times too. This was the first time.
Okay.
And Bill sent me a text. He was like, hey, this is probably, this may sound silly, but you have a copy, a Blu-ray of Evil Dead 1, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, sure do. And he's like, our DCP hasn't arrived yet, and you're coming, right? And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, could you just bring it in case?
There you go.
So I brought my copy. They actually showed
your copy.
They showed my copy on Blu-ray. Which, hey, you got to do what you got to do.
I think I remember that too because the screen was doing the Japanese, the credits at the end, and then they had the like it was all that shit at the end of a Blu-ray.
It's really, really funny. But anyway, so my point just being that I still love the cinema experience. Unlike David, who hates it now.
I do not.
And I will say, if you haven't seen Hard Eyes and you've been putting it off, go see it before it leaves theaters because it deserves your support if you love horror films. And if you love a fun time in the theater, and think about the fact that on this very show, where I have how many times talked about how horror comedies just don't work for me.
Yeah.
This one worked pretty damn well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It really did. So, and that's saying something because even Love Hurts, I was like, this is a little too jokey for how violent it is. I mean, so anyway, that was very long way to say that our movie tonight, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Is a film I had not revisited possibly since I first saw it on Netflix in 2014.
I think the last time I revisited it was when I bought the Blu-rays, and I think that was about 5 years ago. I think I bought it during COVID. I
wish I had bought it.
Yeah. Bet you do.
Well, I have a region-free player now, so I'll buy it from Germany.
But our film tonight is Blue Ruin from 2013, 1 hour and 30 minutes, rated R for strong bloody violence and language.
I would say that's fair.
Yeah, I would say so too. IMDb synopsis says, a mysterious outsider's quiet life is turned upside down when he returns to his childhood home to carry out an act of vengeance. Proving himself an amateur assassin, he winds up in a brutal fight to protect his estranged family.
That's a solid description.
My synopsis says, upon hearing that the murderer of his parents is being released from prison, Dwight Evans returns to his hometown of Virginia to take vengeance on him, unaware the retaliation could reach his own family.
That one's pretty good. It's a little too much.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean that's constructive criticism.
Even though a little too much, even though the other one has more words than mine.
It felt like too much.
Taglines include, revenge comes home.
The night the revenge comes home.
Second, a man with nothing to lose is a man with nothing to fear. I like that one.
One's pretty good.
Blue Ruin at this time is currently available to stream through Fossum, Plex, Pluto, Tubi, and you can also, if you're lucky enough, find a old release of it through Anchor Bay on DVD and Blu-ray, but it's going to be a bit pricey.
Yeah, and I went ahead and bought a digital copy for myself because I want to make sure I have a
digital
copy
through Fandango at home right now in the U.S. is $8. I will say
it was $8 on Amazon as well.
Okay, cool.
So,
director and writer and cinematographer on the film is Jeremy Saulnier. He gets his start as writer and director on Murder Party in 2007. Goes on to do Blue Ruin in 2013 as writer and director, Green Room in 2015, Rebel Ridge. He also is a director on The Killer Speaks in 2013, Hold the Dark, an episode of True Detective in 2019, and he also was the director of photography on 'Tis Autumn, The Search for Jackie Paris, Hamilton in 2006, Murder Party, Putty Hill, Septian, You Hurt My Feelings, In Our Nature, See Girl Run, I Used to Be Darker, and Blue Ruin in 2013 was his last as DP.
Well, I mean, at that point, Blue Ruin was a big point because his first feature, Murder Party, I did an entire episode of Cutting Deep into Horror over at Weekly Spooky on it, which is a great episode.
It is.
Because that's a movie I discovered straight up on a Friday night at Blockbuster when I lived in Jersey, and I had not heard of it at all. I just saw that poster. I took it home, and it killed me.
I told you that I didn't like it the first time I watched it, right?
Yes, I tried to forget that forever.
I bought the DVD from FYE, took it home, was super excited, put it on, and I was just like, this is not at all what I expected. It's fine. And then I can't remember what caused me to revisit it a couple years later, and I was like, I'm stupid and wrong, and this is amazing.
Well, and that's another example. That's a horror comedy that I consider one of my tops of all time.
No, absolutely.
So, Murder Party, released by Magnolia and Magnet Releasing, didn't set the world on fire, but it had incredible word of mouth.
Yeah.
It had the reviews were great. The people who loved it. The people who loved it were obsessed with it.
Fuck, it was on Netflix for 6 years?
On and off.
Yeah.
Because it went away and came back too.
Yeah.
I remember showing it to one of my roommates way back in the day. And on Halloween, he had gotten home from work. He worked at a restaurant. He got home at 9. I was like, dude, you want to watch Murder Party? He's like, what the hell's Murder Party? And I was like, just hold on. When it was over, he turned to me, he was like, gotta watch that every fucking Halloween, man. He was shocked how fun it was.
No, it's super fun.
And it holds up every time I watch it.
Gets better.
Very well-made movie. But so, with that film having come out in 2007, Saulnier had a lot of trouble, kind of finding his way, I suppose. I feel like I remember hearing, and you'll probably know this in the trivia, that in a way, Blue Ruin was potentially the swan song.
Yeah.
And which I understand because I made my swan song in 2011, and then continued, and I'm still making movies to this day. So I respect that feeling though of making a movie that's going to be your swan song.
Absolutely.
And Blue Ruin, not a very funny movie, very well acted, very well paced, very well shot. It was made right when we went from the DSLR digital camera revolution to having digital cinema cameras. It was shot on the Canon C100, I believe, or maybe it was C300, doesn't matter. One of the first cameras that was meant to be like a DSLR, like a photography camera, but was meant for video. So you could use photography lenses, which were very affordable, and Saulnier did shoot it on photography lenses. I remember because people were shocked at how great it looked because it was considered shot on lesser equipment, but it got such a huge amount of attention. In part, it was because he knew what he was doing to make it look great. It's funny because that was the camera I was considering when I bought my first digital cinema camera, but I went Sony in part because it was cheaper.
Makes sense.
Not a lot cheaper. But.
Well, and I mean, the reason that the movie is effective, and we'll get into this obviously, but the reason the movie is effective is because it is a beautiful movie, but it's a haunting film. And the imagery is so beautifully shot, and it's horrible, horrible acts.
No, it's very matter of fact.
Yeah.
It's very
realistic.
Here we go. Well, and that's the thing. It's a revenge film that is, in my opinion, like hyper realistic.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
No, absolutely.
And you don't get a lot of those. Revenge movies are usually a bit more about satisfaction. Although, one of the most common tropes, there's an old saying, he who seeks revenge should dig two graves. I don't know what that's from. Maybe that's from the Bible. I wouldn't even know.
I think it's I've heard it in a lot of Westerns, but I don't know.
Well, then it might be the Bible.
Yeah.
A man who seeks revenge.
Might be Confucius, honestly.
Maybe. Well, you know what? Do you have any favorite Confucius?
No.
Oh, my favorite was he who stands on toilet high on pot.
God damn you.
What? Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Oh yeah, just you got nothing to say?
No, I mean, I was gonna continue, but yeah.
So it is a proverb. Oh, from Confucius. Well, it's attributed to Confucius.
Okay.
But no one really knows.
That's fair.
But it appears to be Confucius.
But yeah, I mean, that's a strong tie to any vengeance film that's always usually referenced in. And I think that's one thing that attracted me to Blue Ruin when I didn't even know really who Saulnier was. I mean, I didn't even know he had Murder Party because I just didn't even really pay attention that much.
Oh, you got into Murder Party that late?
I got into Murder Party when I still lived at home, and it was a used DVD that I found at FYE, and it would have had to have been 2010, 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
So right before Blue Ruin was a thing.
Because then I don't think... Actually, honestly, dude, I don't think I went back to Murder Party till after Blue Ruin, now to think about it.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think it took me a bit. But, yeah, it was... but Blue Ruin was just... It was a different vengeance tale that I'd seen ever before. I mean, because I had not seen, like, Rolling Thunder at that point, because that's a great one. Trying to think of some other vengeance movies that have that kind of tone to them. Get Carter's one of them, I would say too. But like, it is a true blue vengeance tale.
A true blue ruin
vengeance tale.
Yeah, well, and Saulnier, they went at, and Macon Blair, I mean, is worth mentioning. This was the launch of his shockingly, and I mean this with love, because he's a great actor, but like a shockingly good career.
So Macon Blair, who plays Dwight Evans in the film, he gets a start in 2005 on a film called Gretchen, then does Murder Party in 2007, appears on an episode of SVU in 2008, Side by Each in 2008, You Hurt My Feelings 2011, The Man from Orlando, Hellbenders in 2012, then does Blue Ruin, followed by Green Room in 2015, Gold in 2016 with Matthew McConaughey.
Okay, yeah. And this is when I started to notice. I was like, I remember at one point he walked into a scene and I was like, wait, I'm watching a Clint Eastwood movie right now.
Then he does I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, which he also directs in 2017, which he's the writer and director on. Small Crimes in 2017, Into the Who Knows in 2017, Mustang Island, The Florida Project, Logan Lucky in 2017.
Yes.
Thunder Road in 2018, Hold the Dark in 2018, which he's a writer on.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Sister Amy in 2019, Room 104, which he's writer and director on. Swamp Thing TV series in 2019, I Blame Society in 2020, The Hunt in 2020, I Care a Lot in 2020. Then he does Oppenheimer in 2023.
Yes.
Then Toxic Avenger in 2024, which hasn't been released yet.
Which he wrote and directed, I believe.
And he also appeared in Reservation Dogs, Rent Free, The Thicket, and Mo.
Man, yeah. I mean, incredible. And considering that, like, when they made Blue Ruin, he was kind of like, well, I've tried.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to do much. And now all of a sudden,
blowing up, working for Nolan.
In like his late 30s, all of a sudden he's in Eastwood movies. He's in Christopher Nolan movies. I love it.
I remember when he walked in on The Hunt and we were just like, holy shit, it's Macon Blair.
Yeah. But that one, at least, I mean, but that one was more expected than when he walked in Oppenheimer. Because The Hunt, it's like, but it's like, it's a fun kind of lower budget, you know, it's a Blumhouse thing. I loved seeing him pop up in these like big major films.
When he appears in the beginning of I Care a Lot and then closes out the film, I was just like, yeah, Macon Blair.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. That was a really good movie.
Yeah. So David Thompson, also in our cast, who plays William in the film, he gets a start in 2011 with Win-Win, How to Make It in America in 2011, Unforgettable in 2011, A Christmas Story 2 in 2012, does Blue Ruin in 2013, appears on Boardwalk Empire in 2014, Moon in the Sun 2014, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt in 2015.
Oh, I didn't see that episode.
Green Room in 2015, The Outcast, Gotham, The Boys, Panic, Fear Street Part 1 in 2021. Then he does Station 19 in 2022, and most recently it's What's Inside in 2024.
Right, which is not an Edgar Wright movie.
Edgar Wright was credited on a review I read. I don't know why, but I'm going to find out.
Maybe they said it reminded them of an Edgar Wright movie.
Could have been.
That was a fun movie.
Maybe he appears in the movie? I don't know.
He doesn't.
Okay. Amy Hargreaves, also wrapping up our cast, who plays Sam in the film. She gets her start in 1994's Brain Scan. His sister is the main chick in Brain Scan.
No way.
No way, indeed.
Well, it's Yes Way.
Yes Way, indeed. Sorry.
No,
then she does
awesome.
ABC After School Specials in 94, Remember Me in 95, Flashback in 97, Family Law, Growing Down in Brooklyn, Law and Order, Criminal Intent in 2002, Little Bill in 2003, Third Watch 2003, Michael Clayton, The Unusuals, Offspring, Shame, Homeland, Person of Interest, Blue Bloods, The Carrie Diaries, The Following, Blue Ruin in 2013, The Blacklist, Elementary, How He Fell in Love, Power, Blind Spot, 13 Reasons Why, Sometimes Other Than Now in 2021, Bull in 2021, Billions, Hayseed, Founders Day, and most recently Test Screening in 2024.
We never saw Founders Day, did we?
We did not.
We need to
It missed us in theaters, and I think it's on Tubi now.
Oh, well.
I have to check it out.
But man, I had no idea she built such a career after Brain Scan. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
So what was your first time watching Blue Ruin?
So I was a fan of Jeremy Saulnier since, like I said, since Murder Party.
Yeah.
And I was living on the East Coast at that time, working in movies. So I added him on Facebook, and he accepted my friend request. We had some friends in common, mostly like people through Fangoria, the old Fangoria.
Old Fango.
And I remember him promoting. I kicked in, I want to say I put in a very small amount of money on the Kickstarter. I was very broke at the time.
Yeah.
But I think I might have put $5 in or something. And I remember being so excited that he was crowdfunding a new movie because I just wanted to see a new movie from him.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I remember kind of like falling off and not hearing about it. And then all of a sudden seeing people saying like it's on Netflix and it's really good. And that was when I had to watch it because I was already a Netflix subscriber.
Yeah.
So I put it on and my jaw was like on the floor pretty much the whole movie. That first third of the film is some of the best filmmaking.
Perfect.
It's just perfection.
Yeah.
The way the film opens is we meet this beach bum played by Macon Blair.
Yeah.
And he's a beach bum.
He's a beach bum, living in his car.
Yeah, well, and occasionally in people's houses when they're not home.
Yes.
Because we open with him, I believe, taking a bath in someone else's house.
He's had a sandwich. He's got it, and he's just in this house. The TV's on, and then they come home.
Yeah, and he just leaves and takes some clothes on his way out.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of hanging out, doing whatever. He's all disheveled and stuff. And he's living in this beat up car that doesn't run.
Yeah.
It just sits there. And it appears that the beach community know him.
Mm-hmm.
They probably don't know that he's like breaking into people's houses because he seemed good at it.
Yeah.
He was able to slip out,
real quick.
Yeah. But so now as he's like hanging out doing his thing, this cop comes and he's of course nervous because he thinks they're going to tell him like you can't sleep at the beach or whatever. And the cop is super nice to him. And she tells him like, look, I just need you to come with me. You're not in trouble. He comes along and we find out that someone who committed a crime related to him, he's being legally notified that this person is being released from prison.
Wade Cleland Jr.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as the film progresses, we find out what
happened,
what he did. Well, we find out what they think happened versus what
actually happened,
what really happened.
Yeah.
And basically we find out that his parents were murdered and a long time ago.
20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
And he's just been bumming it up ever since.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, instead of being like an aimless vagabond, all of a sudden he's gathering up all the little bits of money he has left, and he goes. This is why I love it. He goes to like an AutoZone. He buys a car battery. He fixes his car. So like that's the reason I love that is not just because he knew how or whatever, but because he had been choosing not to.
He had been being a beach bum.
Didn't care.
Yeah.
He was like, why does the car need to move? I'm not moving. So he gets his car up and running. And it's a great sequence because he so dutifully and silently just does all this.
Yeah.
And at this point, he's barely spoken.
Yeah.
I mean, he may not have spoken at all.
Well, and he also buys a postcard.
Well, that's while after he's fixed the car, because he's at a pawn shop trying to get a gun.
Yes.
But he doesn't have enough money for it.
He does not have enough money, no.
No, so he tries to steal a gun by breaking into a car.
Breaks into a truck, goes and gets the gun case, gets the gun, and realizes there's a lock on the trigger.
Yeah, there's a trigger lock on it.
So
tries to break it off, can't.
Breaks the gun.
Yep.
Takes it to a beach, breaks the gun entirely. And I love this because he's using a crowbar, trying to hit it off, breaks the gun completely because he snaps pardon my gun knowledge.
The finger guard?
No, he's out of the gun. He breaks the gun by the round.
You mean the
cylinder?
The cylinder. Yeah.
The cylinder gets knocked out of the gun, so he takes the gun and the crowbar and puts them both in the trash on the beach.
Yeah, just that ain't working.
So then he has to get a gun somehow.
Well, or does he?
Or does he indeed? So that's when we follow him to the prison. He basically finds out that the day that he's getting released, and he gets his car, he goes out there and he just waits. And he waits, and then we see this white limousine pull up. We see some people get out, and we see Wade Cleland Jr. come up with his little box of stuff, puts it in the limo, and the limo goes driving, and he follows them to a bar.
Now, here's one thing I love. It's never explained why they have a limousine. There's
a throwaway line of dialogue from his
out.
sister. They're running a limousine company.
Oh,
that's what their big money is now.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense because when we see their family home later, it's not much to look at. No. So you kind of go, where's the money going?
Yeah.
So that makes
it's a throwaway line from his sister about that because she's like, and now they get to run a limousine company. Like, how fair is that? So
no, that makes perfect sense. I totally missed that.
So they go to this bar, and that is when Dwight pulls up. And I love this too because they go past, or they go park their car. He drives past and parks his car off a little bit.
Yeah.
And then sneaks around the back of the bar. And the one thing that I love about this movie in regards to Dwight's shots especially, he's going by the run. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just going by what he thinks he should be doing. And he's
kind of instinct.
Yeah, and he's out of his element.
Yeah, oh yeah. But he's still like very slow and methodically plotting.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I love. I love that he just like sees this is happening. He's like, well, got to get the car running. Got to get a weapon. Got to get to where I need to go.
I don't think he speaks his first on a dialogue until after.
Yeah, I don't think he speaks.
Because I don't think he speaks to the cop.
I don't think he says a word out loud.
Yeah.
Because then, we don't want to get ahead.
Yeah.
But basically, later on, when he sees his sister and they're talking, he says, like, I'm not used to talking this much.
Yeah.
So please.
So yeah, he's sneaking around the back, and he's going through this alley. He gets into the back of the club, and we see that the bar is in business and everything. And he sneaks past this entry of the bar and goes into one of the supply rooms and finds a knife that you would use to like basically chop like the olives and stuff like that.
Yes.
So he's got this little tiny blade, and he goes into the bathroom and he waits, and then Wade Jr. comes in. With the one guy, the other guy leaves him, and then he comes out of the stall, just sticks him in the neck. He starts fighting with him and everything, and then when he gets the upper hand again, he takes the blade and just sticks it right into his head.
Yeah,
quick.
Well, the sticking into his head is quick.
Yeah,
but he stabs him in the neck.
Yeah,
Wade grabs him. He's like strangling him, and the thing I liked about that was Macon Blair. His reaction to like being strangled and stuff is not really even fear.
No.
I mean, he's aware, like he doesn't want to die, like outwardly.
Would you like to know something in regards to that scene? That's technically trivia.
Sure.
The guy that's playing Wade was actually strangling Macon, and Macon had to tell him a couple times, like, "Hey, man, like all you got to do is like throw me," because like when he has his hand on his throat and you like see his eyes go, he was literally choking him.
Everybody knows that if somebody's choking you too hard, all you have to say is "Easy, Daddy,"
or your safe word.
I mean, I think Easy Daddy's better.
It's not bad.
Or Yellow.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I mean, he stabs him in the neck and then he stabs him in the temple. And when we say the violence is realistic, the blood that comes out is not like horror film style. It's exactly what would be if somebody got stabbed in the temple.
Well, and when he falls down after he's pulled the knife out, there's blood in his eye, but not a ton. And his eye's just all red, and the blood's coming out, and he starts to slowly die.
And Macon gets covered in his blood.
Oh yeah.
So he walks out and goes over to the car, and before he leaves, he sticks the knife into the tire of the limousine. Then he gets back in his car, realizes his keys are in the bathroom.
Well, because they'd established earlier that he keeps the car keys around his neck.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that was his parents' car.
Yes.
So it's like, it's sentimental.
So fun story that they don't talk about in the movie at all. You notice how the bullet holes are in the car?
Oh, yeah.
That's because his parents were killed in that car.
Oh, that makes perfect sense, because they mentioned at one point, they say like your mom being in the car was unfortunate.
Yep.
So that makes perfect sense.
So he gets back into his car, realizes he doesn't have the keys, so then he goes and steals the limousine with the knife in the tire.
Yeah, with the flat tire. And speeds off.
They come running out after him because they found Wade at this point. So he's driving and he goes a bit ways. He's frantic, and then he starts hearing some knocking on the back window and realizes that somebody's in the back of the limousine.
Yes.
So he pulls over to the side, and that's when the younger brother, William, comes out. And he's like, did you hurt Wade? And he's like, yeah, he hurt my family. And William, not missing a beat, goes, I don't think he did. Takes off running.
Yeah.
Just runs away from him.
Yeah, and that's a great moment, too, because we're learning so much about this character. We're learning so much about how he views this vengeance. And that's kind of what I like about the movie, is this idea of a person who has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And also the idea of he's not stupid.
No.
He's not going into these situations believing he's John Rambo.
No.
He's going into these situations with a very realistic attitude.
Yeah.
That he'll probably die doing this.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
He wants to have this conclusion to his story, and because of that, he makes mistakes because he's literally your average man taking vengeance. I mean, like when he stabs the tire, he cuts his hand super fucking bad.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite little moments. His hand is just covered in blood, and he's already covered in blood, but now he's bleeding even more. And that's another thing, is his injuries are very realistically depicted, especially later on.
Yeah.
When it nearly makes you sick to your stomach. That's one of the things that makes the movie work, is that it's very guttural and very realistic in a way that is unpleasant. And I always enjoy when things are unpleasant.
Yeah.
When they're an inherently unpleasant thing like murder.
Yeah.
And
when you get done with a murder, you got to go change your appearance. So he takes his car and takes the limousine, ditches it eventually, breaks into another house, shaves his beard completely off, tidies his hair up, gets nice clothes on. Then he checks the news reports, and sees that nothing has been reported.
And we forgot to mention, he mails that postcard.
To
his sister.
Yeah, which basically the postcard was to explain that he was going to kill Wade, and that he was basically going to, like, everything should be fine from this point.
Yeah.
So he mails the postcard, breaks into that house, and that's when he leaves. He goes over to a gas station, gets a ride with a trucker, and then he eventually arrives at his sister's house.
Yeah. And his sister lives in a suburban neighborhood. She appears to have a good job.
Yeah.
Her kids.
2 kids.
She has 2 adorable little kids.
Yep.
And she's just getting ready to say goodbye to the kids, and the babysitter's there.
Yep.
And as she leaves, she sees her brother.
Yeah.
And this is another part. Again, realism is really the key to what makes this movie really incredible to me.
Yeah.
Even when things are a bit more outrageous or fantastic, it's still very real.
Mm-hmm.
His sister doesn't react by going like, but she just kind of goes like, oh, hey, and she takes him out to get a hamburger, and they sit down just at this fast food restaurant.
And again, not saying much
at all. She does ask him, like, do you need money? And he's like, no,
I got it. You have a box of stuff at the house. You're still owed $2,800. If the car, if you're still driving the Pontiac, you need to switch it over to your name.
Yeah. Which scared me. The moment I heard that, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because the car was left behind.
Yes.
So that's like the ultimate calling card of who was that.
Yeah. And then what is great about this scene is she's like, if you're here because Wade got out, I know they let you know when they release a prisoner. They also send us a restraining order.
Yeah.
And that's when he basically is like, I killed Wade. Wade's dead. And they know it's me. And that's when the whole thing about the car comes out. But also before that, she even says that, I want them all dead. not just, that whole family should die, not just Wade. So that's when Macon puts together that since the car is registered, who's with your kids right now?
Well, the other realization is that there was never a police report. So that's when he goes, they never called the police. That means they're going to take care of it themselves. Yeah. So then he's like, who's with your kids right now? And it's a great tense moment. I do want to mention, without getting into incredible amount of detail, I once had a girlfriend who got a notice that a violent criminal related to her in some way, I don't want to be, was being released. She got that notice.
Jesus.
It was, she was okay. We went out and got hamburgers and milkshakes to like to chill out about it. But she was just kind of like, I need to tell you this, and then I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, all right. So, but they really do notify victims and whether it's a direct victim or the victim's families and stuff. They really do in most places.
Yeah.
So, they rush back to her place. Very tense moment. They get there, and as they're going, they're calling the babysitter's not answering her phone, not answering her phone.
They're speeding.
Oh, yeah, like bat out of hell.
So she gets in the driveway, runs up. The babysitter comes from the side, and she's like, what's going on? Goes in the house. Kids are fine. Nothing is wrong and everything. And now she's pissed. She even starts attacking him a little bit.
Yeah, she's mad that he scared her so bad.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's hilarious to think about how that works in life, though. Like, you need to get a hold of somebody right now to make sure they're alive.
Yeah.
And they don't answer. In general, if someone, say, doesn't pick up their phone for 25 minutes, not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
But in this case, quite a big deal.
Very big deal. So she's like, I want you gone and everything. Like, don't be around here. And he basically tells her that he's concerned because now that they know the car's registered to her, they can come right here. It's not just between him. He's worried that she's going to get involved.
Yeah. And he's worried that they're going to come for revenge.
Yeah.
He's hoping, and because one of the things he keeps, saying is he's like, I wonder if they're here for me or they're here for you.
Yeah.
And that's a really, solid point. So he convinces her to just get out of town.
Get out of there.
Yeah. Just her and the kids just leave.
Yep.
And he sets himself up in her house.
He posts up. So he basically is making every amends possible, like to check if they're coming, like he's checking out the window, and eventually does see them at night parked outside the house.
Yeah.
And at this point, he's tried to grab anything that he can for a weapon, which I think is a pitchfork.
He finds a pitchfork. Well, he's like, again, this is kind of that point about he's not an idiot.
Yeah.
He sets up things to help him know if doors are being, opened. He has the pitchfork. He goes upstairs. He makes the bed up like somebody's laying in bed wrapped in blankets.
Turns the light on.
Turns the faucet on, hoping that that'll distract them to make them think to go upstairs so we can hopefully get some kind of jump on these guys.
Yeah.
And sure enough, as soon as he turns on that light,
they're in the house.
He notices the guy walking up to the house. He breaks the little piece of glass and unlocks the door.
Yep.
And we're off to the races.
So he's in the house with him, and Dwight's trying to avoid him. He hides behind a couch at one point. One of my favorite shots is he's hiding behind this couch. We see the one guy come from the side looking, and he's just basically trying to figure out what to do. And by this point, he knows that he's got to do something.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So that's when he gets out. He goes outside to his car, right?
Yeah, he goes out. Well, he goes outside because there's another guy out there.
Yeah, he escapes because you got Teddy in the house and Carl's out front. So, or maybe because Teddy's the one he hits with the car. Yes, Teddy's in the house, Carl's out front because Carl's got the crossbow. So he gets out to his car and he gets it started, and that's when Teddy comes up with a shotgun, but he runs his car into him, knocks him out. He takes the shotgun and he goes up to Carl, who's got the crossbow, and then Carl goes running, but Carl gets one shot off right into his leg.
Into his thigh. Which is worse. And well, not just worse because, I mean, it hurts a lot. It's higher up your leg. It's harder to walk, but also it could nick your carotid. Is that where your carotid artery is?
Oh, yeah.
It could nick an artery and you'll out
die
immediately.
You will die.
So it's pretty scary.
Yeah. So he gets Teddy's body into the trunk before he gets the shotgun. So he's got Teddy's body in the trunk, and he goes after Carl briefly, but then Carl gets to a dark alley behind the house, and he's like, no, I'm not doing this. So gets back in the car and drives off, and that's when he realizes he has to treat his wound.
Yeah, so he cuts the arrow so that it's not sticking out.
Yeah.
He cuts it so he can cover it up, and he goes into just a pharmacy.
I love my favorite part about him cutting it though is he gets Teddy into his car, and that's when he pulls out a hacksaw, a hammer, some clippers, then puts the arrow into the door, like closes the door on it, cuts it with the hacksaw, and then realizes he's got to get something to try and take it out with.
Oh yeah. So he's just in a pharmacy,
and
he's buying like all of he buys a jug of alcohol and a jug of peroxide. He buys all this stuff.
Bandages, painkillers, a scalpel.
Well, and this is why it's so great. Well, he buys an X-Acto knife because I don't know what kind of pharmacies you have around you, but they don't usually carry scalpels.
Yeah, X-Acto knife and super glue.
So, you trust me.
Yeah,
you want super glue.
Oh yeah, you do.
But he grabs a needle and thread, and this is another great moment. So he's getting all the things, all the accoutrement to take care of this wound yourself. He goes up to the cashier, and as he's paying, one of the dollar bills just is covered in blood. And what I love about that is that he looks at it, he goes, yeah. And he doesn't explain it all.
No, and the pharmacist is just like, here you go.
Yeah. I mean, considering what he's buying, although he did kill somebody, but not right then. If he had killed somebody, he must have decided to save their life, But yeah, the pharmacist. So now he's in his car, and one of the most gruesome scenes in the whole movie.
Horrific.
He's trying to dig
into his skin.
Well, and he's trying to dig out the arrow.
Yeah.
He's got the pliers, and he's trying, and he's screaming. And then, it's really shocking. They don't cut away at all from it. And then he just kind of, and it cuts, and he's in a hospital.
Yeah, he walks into a hospital, and he's like, I had an accident, and then faints right on the floor.
On my leg.
Yeah.
And then he just falls over, and he's dragging blood across the wall.
Yep.
Well, I just love that because, again, he's not John Rambo.
No.
Rambo would put his knife in the fire and then cauterize that wound. No. He tried. He saw, he whether he saw it in a movie or he took a first aid kit class.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what he needs to do, but how do you do that to yourself? And another thing I love is that from the time, like, he goes into the pharmacy, his complexion is so pale. He's sweating, clearly not doing well.
Yeah, he does not look well.
So now he wakes up in the hospital.
Realizes they've taken care of the arrow.
He opens up his thing, and it's all stitched up.
So then he escapes the hospital.
Yeah, he runs away wearing his
gown,
his assless gown.
Gets back to the Pontiac, which is the car that he borrowed from his sister, because we forgot to mention that she did say the extra pair of keys was in the house. So she did take the Pontiac. He takes the Pontiac. He's hidden it. He goes back and puts his ear to the trunk just to see if Teddy's still alive in there, and knocks on it, and Teddy starts like, hey, I'm in here. Is it you? Like, so then he gets back in the car and drives, and that's when he realizes that he needs to find a way to get a gun.
Yeah. So he needs to do something about Teddy in the trunk. And I love that then he goes and he gets gas, and there's a guy screaming in the trunk. My first thought was, pro tip, turn on the radio.
Turn on the radio, yeah.
So is this the part where he finds his buddy?
Yeah. So this is where he I can't remember. So he gets the stuff out of his trunk, out of his sister's house, the box of stuff. Finds the picture, I think, that references Ben or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
And so that's when he decides that he's going to go see his buddy Ben Gaffney. And so he goes to his parents' house. His mom invites him in, and she's like, well, Ben doesn't live around here anymore. Here's his address. And he finds out that he works at this bar. So he goes to this bar in a really cool scene with the lighting, especially.
Well, and I want to mention that his friend Ben, you said?
Yeah.
Ben is played by Devin Rattray.
Devin Rattray, yep.
Or Rattray? Rattray. I love him because this was one of the first movies where I noticed he was in a lot of stuff. I noticed him in this and Nebraska. And I noticed him in an episode of Louie.
Yeah.
The Louis C.K. TV series. And he's been a working actor for a long time, but the thing that I didn't recognize him from immediately that now I always do is he was older brother Buzz in Home Alone 1 and 2.
Yep.
And I'll be dipped in shit if that Mother Hubbard I like how I don't swear on that part. If that Mother Hubbard is not a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
In everything he does, he's
great.
A standout, which is actually one of the reasons I was shocked that he was the child actor Buzz in Home Alone, because that was such a character. He was a young, he was built to be a bully kid. Like, he looks like somebody sculpted him. They were like, what's a jerk older brother? We'll get the nose, we'll get the eyebrows. But as an adult, he's a really great actor.
Yeah.
And his part in this part of the film is very complex.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because he runs into his buddy and
waits for him outside. Like, that's my favorite. Is he waits for him outside and then sees him come out. He's got headphones on, so he keeps calling to him. finally gets him, and he's like, oh shit, you disappeared, dude. Like I didn't even know where you were.
Well, he makes some reference to like I put up missing posters for you. Although I think turns out he was joking about that. But yeah, so you realize these guys were childhood friends because I want to say he would have been like 20 because the murder happened in like the late 90s.
Yeah.
So he would have been maybe 18 or 19, maybe 20, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so he hasn't seen him for a really, really long time.
Yeah. And his introduction to him is, I need a favor. It's big. Which
I love that too, because the honesty.
Yeah.
You know, the direct honesty of it. None of that like trying to make it all right and saying like, hey man, I mean, I meant to come back. No, just I need a favor and it's big.
So we see them drive out to his house and he's like basically telling him like, hey man, like I found a Polaroid recently, a you, me, and a stripper and everything. Skips over that. And then he's just like, I need, I'm on time. Like I need this gun.
Yeah. And that's when we find out he needs a gun.
Yep.
And his buddy is
target practice.
Well, target practice.
He doesn't hunt. He just has a lot of guns because he does target practice.
Well, it appears that he has occasionally been involved in unscrupulous activities.
Yeah, because he mentions that he's killed 2 people by choice.
On purpose.
Yeah.
But later on, he does reference like you got to do it right and legal.
Yeah.
So he's like, I had to wait because, I mean, we're spoiling everything, but like, when he shoots somebody to save his buddy, he says like I had to wait until he aimed the gun at you to do it legal.
Do it legally.
So like that makes me wonder if when he says he killed people by choice, it was in some kind of self-defense.
I mean, he much cares about his property and what happens on it.
He does. No, but that's the thing. But then there are like little hints, like because he ends up giving him a Mini 14, which is the gun from the A-Team. And Mini 14, for those who don't know anything about firearms or know very little about firearms, it is. A lot of people like to joke. It's basically the kinder assault rifle in air quotes. It's the kinder modern sporting rifle. It's a semi-automatic rifle. It's basically the same thing as an AR-15, except it's got it's all wood.
Yeah.
So it looks more like a hunting rifle.
Yeah.
And people don't worry about Mini 14s very much. They're a fine gun.
Yeah.
But it literally shoots the same bullets as an AR-15. It's a pretty reliable firearm. And that's the gun he gives him because he says, I bought it at a gun show. It's got no papers.
No paperwork.
It's just here to go.
And he even asked him, he's like, because that's my favorite is the initial. He goes, so what gun do you, or what do you need it for, or what kind of gun, or I can't remember, because he asked him in a certain way, and he's like, oh no, I'm not asking that. Like the better I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I don't want the details. I just need to know like long distance, close range,
up close, far away.
So yeah, he gives him the gun and he basically tells him he owns 16 acres and that, that's where he can go and do the business. So he goes back to his car and he drives his car out with Teddy in it. And my favorite shot, he goes to the side of the car, opens the door, opens the glove compartment, and he's just waiting. And then he hits the trunk button, races around back with the rifle.
Yeah. It's a great moment.
Yeah.
And now he's got this guy, basically he's his prisoner.
Yeah, and he says that Teddy says his leg is broken, so because he's like, stay in the trunk, and he's like, I won't be a problem, leg's broken. So that's when he asks him, why are you doing this? And he's just like, why? Like, Wade killed my parents, and he's like, well, that's actually not what happened. We find out that Wade Sr. is who killed Dwight's parents, and his only target was his father because his father had an affair with Wade Sr.'s wife.
Right.
And the mom just got in the crossfire. And Teddy even says that, like,
it was unfortunate she was in that car too.
Yeah. And that's the thing is there's this whole exchange between Teddy and Dwight at this point where basically Teddy says, the man with the gun gets to tell the truth. So, because he even says, like, William said that you didn't kill my dad. And he's like, oh, well, then that's that. Man with the gun tells the truth.
Yeah. and this is also really an interesting point too, because it's almost like a little bit of like Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah.
That this like feud began because of this. And the reason there had never been a need for reprisal was that the supposed killer Wade was serving time.
Yeah.
Therefore, justice was served.
And he had cancer.
And well, I mean, the Wade went to prison.
Yeah.
And the reason they didn't want Wade Sr. to go to prison was he was sick with cancer already. So they didn't want him to send him away. And then the reason that the other brother, Teddy,
Yeah.
The reason Teddy didn't do it was he had already had 2 strikes, so he would have went to prison for a really long time.
Yeah.
And since Wade Jr. had no history, they were like, well, you'll do the least amount of time for this crime.
And even Teddy says at one point, because Dwight asked him, he goes, and what about the younger one? He's like, oh, he's just a boy. Like, doesn't even bring him into the equation.
Yeah, he won't even say he's his brother.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, that's just a boy.
Yeah, just a boy. So that's when Dwight asked him to basically call them. He's like, call them, tell them it's over. We'll meet in a public place. We'll settle this, So here's the phone.
Well, and he says, like, why didn't you call the police? And he's like,
we want to finish this in house.
We want to finish
like you
in house
did.
just like you did.
Yeah.
And he says, like, what if I turn myself in? He's like, hell yeah. And he's like, I mean, to the police. And he's like,
you
no.
don't get that option.
Well, I love that he just immediately goes, nope, that won't do it.
Yeah, you don't get that option. So that's when he hands him the phone and he has him call one cell phone. It goes voicemail, leaves a voicemail. And then he's like, can you mind if I call the house? And he's like, yeah, call the house. Acts like he has the sister on the phone. He's like, she wants to talk to you, gets him come over. As soon as he comes over with that gun, he grabs the barrel, grabs the gun from him, and climbs out of the trunk and is aiming the gun right on Dwight.
And he pretty much tells him what happened, how the family works, and how they're not going to give up until they get their revenge. And he says, like, if you're you can kill me, but you just need to promise me
my sister's
out of it, like that it ends here.
Yeah, and he won't give him that satisfaction.
No.
And he's getting ready to kill him, and then we hear a bullet whiz past him.
Yes.
And then we hear another fire, and his fucking head just goes to one side.
Yes, because he gets shot by his buddy's Mosin Nagant, which he said was his gun that he was really enjoying. A gun that I got Rachel for her birthday one year.
You told me that.
So, which is a long rifle, Soviet-era rifle, shoots a very powerful projectile.
Yeah.
And I love it when he walks because his face is like, that's what bullets do.
Yeah, he's like,
that's
his face.
The line.
That's what bullets do.
That's what bullets do.
Yeah. So Ben comes from the side, and he's just like, had to wait for him to pull on you. And Ben is very clear that he does not want this on his property. He wants him in the trunk. He wants the gun in the trunk. He wants the cell phone. And Dwight is even like, well, what about the piece of his brain? He's like, coyotes will get that.
Yeah, he's like, as long as there are no teeth.
Yeah, no teeth.
He's so matter of fact about it, which is a great example of what can happen when you're gone for so long. You've been gone for 10, 15 years. And your buddy he's seen some shit.
And we failed to mention, too, that Dwight did try to take like a warning shot and completely prove that he does not know how to handle that gun. So then Ben makes the comment, I'm going to set you up a buckshot.
Yeah, you're not going to hit anything otherwise.
So he takes him out to the field, has him practice. Do you know what kind of gun he gives him?
It is some kind of a revolver style smaller shotgun. I couldn't tell you. It may have been a 10 gauge or something. I couldn't tell you exactly what gun it was.
But Dwight's hitting everything with this. So he says, that's the gun for you. And basically tells him, like, hey, man, like, I'll set you up some MRE, some extra ammo. But, like, this vengeance business is ugly. Like, normally I would be, here for you. But, like, this is ugly, man.
Well, he says, like, I don't mind being here for you, but like, this isn't okay. Like, this is ugly business. Like, that's what he's basically saying. Like, I'm here for you. I'm your friend and everything, but this is hideous.
Yeah.
Like, what we're doing is not okay. And then he gives them some really interesting advice, which is, he says, this is personal for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you get in there, don't talk. Don't explain things. Don't try to whatever. He's like, that gets you killed.
Just shoot.
You just shoot. And I thought that was a really brilliant point too. I mean, like, because it's personal, you're more likely to fail.
Yeah.
And he takes that somewhat to heart at first.
A little bit. So, and he also tells Ben to burn the Polaroid of him and him.
If he finds it, he's like, please burn it.
And we see him in his kitchen enjoying a beer and puts the Polaroid in the microwave and just smokes that sumbitch.
Yeah, it's just gonzo.
So he drives off, and we see Ben is in his truck, and he tries to start it, but nothing happens. He goes around front to see that Dwight removed his battery, which we cut to Dwight's car, and the battery is right behind Dwight's seat.
I figured he did that so he wouldn't follow him.
Yeah, that's exactly why I figured. So that's when Dwight decides that he is just going to go straight to the Cleland's house, and he gets there, he sneaks around back, and kicks in the door, and they're not home.
I did find out what kind of firearm it is. It's a Rossi Circuit Judge, which he does mention that name he's going through.
Judge, yeah.
And I was wrong. It's a 410 or a 45 long Colt.
Okay.
Which is in a 45 long Colt firearm, you can use 410 shotgun rounds.
Yeah.
Or you can use the long Colt. It became more famous as a gun called the Judge. which is a revolver
shotgun,
pistol.
yeah.
Well, no, it's a revolver pistol, but you could put
shells.
buckshot
Because
in
he
it.
even says that thing takes slugs, but you wouldn't hit anything.
You wouldn't hit anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you only have 5 shots.
Yeah.
But so, which is, not a lot for a guy who doesn't know a lot about guns.
So he's kicked in the door. He's going around the house with a gun. They're not home. So what's his first instinct is to remove all the firearms from the house.
And there are plenty of them.
Plenty of them. So
yeah, he just piles them up on a bed sheet.
Rolls them up and throws them into the lake that's right by the house.
Yep.
Pond, lake, whatever it is.
Dumps them out.
So that's when, this is where I really, really appreciate the way that they show this, because he does not wait until just dark. He waits 2 days in this house for them to return home. Which
just drinking water and barely sleeping.
And also looking up at their pictures. Like he's learning things about the family a little bit, or reaffirming what he already knew.
Yeah, and remember, Teddy had referenced before he died that his sister is bossy,
that
and she's
colder than most. Yeah. So that's when he decides that he's just going to wait this out, and he eventually picks up the number of the house, goes outside on his phone, and calls them, leaves an answer machine message, and basically says, Teddy's dead, Wade's dead, and as far as I'm concerned, that's 2 of mine and 2 of yours. This can be done, or we can keep going. Well,
he says this can be done. All I ask is that you don't come after my sister.
Sam.
Yeah. So now they come home.
So before this has happened, we've seen him waiting and everything just around the corner and whatnot. So he's posted up at this point. They come home. He hears the car, and he just hides around the corner, and he's also left the message on this machine by the point.
Yes.
So they come in immediately, or no, he calls the house so that they'll go to the phone, which I always love. So he calls the house, they go to the phone, they play the message, and that's when he says the thing about, I just want my sister left out of this. While this is happening, he is right around the corner with his gun.
Directly behind them, aimed at them.
Yeah.
But as it's the voicemails, or the answer machine is explaining everything, he stops aiming at them because he wants to see how they react.
And then the one brother is just like, that's why we're driving to Pittsburgh.
That's the first place we're going. That's where we're heading straight to Pittsburgh. Kill that bitch.
Pops around the corner and blows him away.
Yeah, well.
One shot, 2 shots.
2 shots and he's gone.
Yeah.
And it is very sudden, very tense.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's just the mayhem is stilted.
Yeah. And we also see that William, he did not know was with them, has in the doorway hearing all this. So he goes back out to the car and grabs the shotgun.
Because they were hunting. They were on a hunting trip.
Yeah. So that's when he basically tells them, I want this to end, and this is tonight. Like this, you're all are going to have to die. Like we're all going to have to die, basically, is what he says.
There was a line that I thought was really important. He said something along the lines of I wish they'd killed me, or something like that. He said,
we'll kill you. You should have, or something like that.
Or I hope you do, or something. Or I wish you would have.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important element too, because, like I said, everything about this movie has been about being realistic. Mm-hmm. Even if at first, like with the removing the arrow, he thought he could do it, but then he goes to the hospital instead of passing out in his car or some shit.
Yeah.
Same thing here. He's like, everything he's done, he's expected to die doing. And in a way, if Wade Jr. had killed him back, he even says when he went after, he's like, I thought he'd kill me.
Yeah.
He really, and this is where I love the movie, but I hate the movie. He really just wants to be out of his own misery because he was clearly just skating by, living as a beach bum because he didn't really value much, but he didn't want to die.
No.
He just, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, after the killer of his parents has been released, and now he has this need for vengeance, this need for justice, this need for whatever the hell.
Yeah.
He can't help it.
No.
And I think that's why he wanted to die, because he felt this innate need.
Yeah.
A compulsion to go after them. And he knew that he couldn't stop it.
Well, and he also says that, I don't understand why my dad loved your mom. Like, this was never anything bad. It was.
No, I don't understand why my dad loving your mom led to all of this.
Created all this. Yeah. So by this point, William is back in the house, and we see one of my favorite shots of the movie is William's in the doorway with the shotgun. We pan across this mantle that's decked with all their photos of the family, all having guns for the most part too.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly a hunting family. Yeah.
And then
and a little bit more.
Yeah, that last pan as we get to the last photo is William coming around with the shotgun, the new blood of the family, basically. And he gets a shot into Dwight, hits him right in the side, and then
with
Dwight
buckshot, so it's not. Or actually, I think it was birdshot.
Yeah, then Dwight knocks the gun up, getting the last shot out, and he's like, "As far as I'm concerned, I think if I can count right, you have less shots than I do."
Yeah, because he had a double barrel shotgun, so it's empty, and now Dwight has the gun. But the young guy, they say, "Kill him," and he says, "I don't want to kill him.
I don't want to kill him." Yeah, I don't want to kill him, and that's when Dwight tells him to leave. My car's down the road. Get out of here.
Well, but the way he says it, because he's bleeding now. And he actually says, like, this hurt a lot less bad than the arrow. And he's kind of laughing about that. But he says, like, my car's over there, the keys or whatever. And he says, but, be careful. It's dark and it might be hard to, but like, go do that. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. And then reveals that Will is the half brother to Dwight.
Well, Dwight reveals that.
Yeah.
Which means that Dwight just knew.
Yeah.
I think he knew from the way Teddy referred to him as just a boy.
Yeah.
And also, but I think especially the age.
Yeah.
Because there was a reference when Teddy was talking, or one of them was talking, I think it was Teddy was talking about his dad. He said, like, the man loved to smoke, he loved to drink, and well, if it weren't for the cancer, he would have fucked.
He would have fucked, yeah.
But that sets up, like, then how is there a brother so young?
Yep, that makes sense.
And honestly, probably what gave away that there was an affair going on was a pregnancy.
Yeah, that probably is the dead result.
Yeah, so now you're realizing that the one person who will likely survive is the intersection of all of this.
So Hope goes to attack Dwight. She gets shot and killed, and that's when Chris, the mother, reaches under the ottoman, grabs a freaking Tech 9. A
Tech 9 submachine gun.
And
a true ghetto blaster firearm. Just full automatic. I was not expecting that. It was underneath the a reclining chair.
Yeah.
She just tips it over, grabs it,
and he gets the last shot off, and we see this happen because William's walking away from the house and he hears both shots.
Right.
And we also see the light in the house. So then William's walking down the road, he's still holding the shotgun, which he throws to the side. He walks off into the night. Dwight's laying in his own puddle of blood, and he's just like, keys are in the car, like repeating that.
Yeah.
And then passes.
Yeah.
And he dies right there, and that's when we cut over to Sam's house the next day. Mail slot opens, the postcard comes through, and that is 2013's Blue Ruin.
A movie that was I held in high regard and was shockingly better than I remembered, which doesn't make any sense because, like I said, I held it in high regard. I felt that it was a phenomenal, perfect movie. And it's rare that a movie so... it's a very low budget movie. I know some people
simple.
Well, and I know some people. I know that they raised $35,000 on Kickstarter, and that Saulnier put in some of his own savings.
Yeah.
But some people I know you said like there was a claim that the budget was $400,000.
$420,000. Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that unless maybe that was post-production funds that like Anchor Bay or somebody threw in.
Yeah.
But like for a relatively cheap movie. Incredibly photographed, incredibly well acted, and very well thought out. And it just knocked me on my ass a second time.
Yeah.
And I just can't say enough about this. If you haven't watched the movie, even with all that we gave you, and we do warn you at the beginning of the show in the narration,
there's plenty
spoilers,
left.
But there's so much to it because it's kind of like, it's not just what happened, it's how it happens.
How it happens, how it looks, the editing. I mean, this is a movie that is shot, edited, scored beautifully.
Well, and it's like one of my favorite movies of the last, decade is Sicario.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went to show Rachel Sicario, I was so amped it had come out on home video because I saw it in the theater and we had a great time watching it. And she was like, well, what's it like? And I was like, I'll put it to you this way. Everyone dies, and I haven't spoiled it.
No.
And she was like, whoa. And that's the way I feel about Sicario, too, is that, and Sicario,
Ruin,
and Sicario Part 2, is that you could know basically what's going to happen, but it's how it happens that makes it such a great feat of filmmaking. And why it truly launched the careers of Macon Blair and Jeremy Saulnier. And I cannot, my little micro budget filmmaker heart goes out to this film because I love that it gifted both of them the career they deserved.
Yeah.
That it made Macon Blair an actor in major movies who now is a director in his own right and a very talented one.
Oh, I don't feel at home in this world anymore. I just watched recently, and I cannot recommend that movie enough. It has an exact feel of like Blue Ruin and Green Room with that humor that's sprinkled in there, but really like just off kilter. It's such a good movie.
Such a great film. So Blue Ruin is just an absolute top-notch film.
Yes.
And so I want to know
more things.
Because, you did your research.
I did my research. I watched the film with the commentary, which I cannot recommend enough, but like I said, this is a little tough to get with the current release of it, but the commentary has Saulnier and Blair on it both. There's also some deleted scenes and a 30-minute making of. So the budget, according to Wikipedia and IMDb, is $420,000. Opening weekend was April 27th of 2014, where it took in $32,000. Gross of U.S. and Canada is $258,000. Gross worldwide is $993,000.
And this was not a major release. It was an indie release.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have caught it in the theater. I don't think it screened anywhere near. It might have showed in Columbus or something.
The Neon.
I don't think it even got there. I mean, you got to remember this is early on in the digital conversion.
Yeah.
A lot of theaters were still resisting it somewhat.
Yeah.
So, because I feel like the full-blown digital conversion being basically you either do it or you die or you be the Mahoning and make it work because you're just a brilliant team and a brilliant drive-in.
Yeah.
Was really like around 15, 16 was when it was like, okay, it's just all digital all the time. Because that's when Danbury switched to digital. When everybody was shocked they were able to do it. I was not, because as much as I love the Danbury Dollar Saver, rest in peace, I remember seeing the Joker there one time and going, wow, they have this on like economy mode on the bulb. Like it's dark.
Oh, dude, no. Like when Mom and I went to see Ocean's, what was the one that was the all-female cast?
8?
Is it Ocean's 8?
I think it was Ocean's 8.
I went out to the lobby several times because I was like, hey, the movie's really dark. And like, oh, yeah, we'll get to that. Never changed.
I don't know if it was that they were playing it in eco mode,
yeah,
which is what like home projectors have, or if it was just that the bulbs were old and dimming.
It could be.
Your mileage may vary, but it was still fun to see movies in the big screen.
So the film itself was shot in Virginia and Delaware. One of the establishing shots on an ocean-wide boardwalk was filmed in Rebeth Beach, Delaware. It depicts Dolly's iconic and instantly recognizable lighted sign. Dolly's is known locally for their saltwater taffy and long history of Rebedeau Boardwalk. Dwight is initially living in his car inside Cape Pendleton State Park outside of Lewes, Delaware, a few miles from Rebedeau Beach.
Man, that's wild that they actually shot it where they takes place, because he starts in Delaware and then he goes to Virginia where his sister is. Man, they really shot that's really cool. I love that.
Blue Ruin is a reference to the Blue and Ruin Pontiac, the car home of Dwight.
I never even. Oh, that's I never. I just thought because blue is like sad,
desolate,
and then there's the ruin of whatever. But that's perfect. The Blue Ruin is the car.
Yep.
Fuck. Okay. Yeah.
Saulnier funded production on the film through a successful Kickstarter campaign, which MTV called the perfect example of what crowdfunding can accomplish.
Especially because it was still somewhat young.
Yeah. Ben Gaffney, Devin Rattray, is based on a real high school friend of director Jeremy Saulnier. Saulnier contacted the real Ben while he was writing the script to get an accurate representation of Ben's moral views and gun collection.
I hope to one day be that friend.
Yeah. At one time, Benny mentions Duce, who got hit by a train. This is a reference to El Duce, lead singer of punk hardcore band The Mentors, who claimed Courtney Love offered him $50,000 to kill Kurt Cobain. He appeared in Nick Broomfield's Kurt and Courtney documentary and died under mysterious circumstances after he made these claims.
So that was one of my favorite Easter eggs I didn't remember from the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Was when he says, right around the time Duce died.
Yeah.
So El Duce, if I remember correctly, died in 1997.
Okay.
He died in 1997. He was sleeping on railroad tracks.
Yep.
So some people believe he may have been murdered. He was in one of the most deeply, like, I don't even know how to describe them.
PMRC went after the Mentors pretty bad.
Well, the Mentors, unlike a lot of other groups, they relished the idea they called themselves the Mentors as an insult. They were like, oh yeah, we're the Mentors. People look up to us, but their songs were heinous. They were about, not always about violence, sort of, but there were only a few songs that were like, they were mostly about just total subjugation of women. Songs like Mother-Daughter Team and Suck Me for Rent. If you like listening to stuff that's so bad it's funny.
Well, and also that documentary came out recently, the El Duce tapes.
I watched it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he was a really odd person. He was not unintelligent, but he was also like, he was such a drunk that it was hard to tell. He was actually well liked for being a guy who was just like, not only like kind of a piece of shit, but he also like wanted to be a piece of shit. Like that was his whole thing. Most famously went on Jerry Springer with Guar. But when people would say like, do you think it's okay if someone listens to your music and decides to rape somebody? He'd be like, yeah, I love it. And people were like frothing at the mouth. He was just being, he was such a, I mean, the fact that the documentary from 2014, The Mentors, Kings of Sleaze. I mean, So anyway, but I also want to mention that their album, they got back together as a band a few years after the Mentors died, and they did a song on the album Over the Top, which was after he died, I believe. Or maybe, they did. I know they did a song. I can't find the exact name, but they did a song called something like "Don't Lay on Train Tracks" or something. Which is just like, that tells you everything you need to know about like,
the band,
about what how they feel about just
everything.
Oof. So anyway,
Ben Gaffney has a tattoo on his left inner forearm of an electric chainsaw, which is a reference to Jeremy Saulnier's film Murder Party.
Oh man, that chainsaw, all painless.
Yep. Jeremy Saulnier revealed in a Q&A that the reason the Pontiac has bullet holes in it at the beginning of the story is because it is the same car that Dwight's parents were murdered in by Big Wade Cleland.
I mean, there's a lot to this film.
Yeah.
I love it.
Ben tells Dwight the speeches will get him killed. In the end, Dwight's speech is what gets him shot by William and eventually dying. Blue ruined temporary font originally, but when the film went to festivals, Saulnier was nervous about changing the font, so he didn't. So the font at the beginning of the movie was not what he wanted. He just kept it when it went to festival.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to change it. Well, I get that too, especially you have your first like real serious hit.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to change an iota. No, like we have a hit. I'm not going to, in the immortal words of Roger Corman, don't fuck with a winner, kid.
Yeah. There you go. The opening scene was originally going to be more elaborate, with Blair's character avoiding the family around the house. However, due to a wire fraud scandal, the location was forced to be changed at the last minute.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's a story.
A 5-foot camera slider was used for most of the shot where Dwight returns to the car, so that little slide is a camera slider.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Sidney Anderson, who plays Officer Eddie, was actually not licensed to drive a vehicle in the state, which Saulnier wasn't aware of until her day of filming. As a result, any of her driving scenes caused the car to be physically moved around.
I've had that happen. I've been on movies where an actor was, like, in the script, it said they drive a car, and they're like, I don't have a driver's license. Is that a problem? We're like, oh boy.
The first shot of principal photography is the scene of Dwight buying the map at the store.
Okay.
The car is Saulnier's parents' car. The car was in pristine condition and required the art department to do their magic to it to give it the look.
Well, of course.
Saulnier commented that the long, drawn-out takes of Dwight are key to his character and motivation of Dwight being unprepared.
Yeah, I just have no complaints with how they did anything.
Handheld camera was used in the bathroom attack scene due to the shooting space available, but also made the scene more intimate for the attack.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that scene's so tense and unpleasant.
Sandy, the actor who plays Wade Jr., was actually choking Macon during the bathroom attack, and Macon had to remind him several times that they could just fake it, but Sandy choked him a couple more times before Jeremy Saulnier had to step in.
Jeez. Well, I mean, actors, man, they'll do that.
Yeah.
They'll choke you.
Originally, the Clelands were supposed to come over. One of the Clelands was supposed to come over the hill, chasing Dwight when he pulled over to the side and let William out. So originally, one of them was still going to be coming over the hill running at them, which they had filmed, but they took it out the last second because they were like, it's kind of silly.
I like the way they did it instead.
Saulnier's daughters make an appearance in the film as Sam's daughters.
I mean, hey, they're affordable.
Yeah. The most expensive effect in the movie was the fake leg when Dwight is doing the operation on his leg for the arrow.
I mean, I believe it because it's so effective.
Yeah.
It's believable.
One of Saulnier's proudest low-budget lighting moments was the initial meeting of Dwight and Benny. The two lights are used for the mains, while natural lighting is used for the rest. He also mentioned that the sound in that scene was hell because there was a train right above them.
The delight, especially and sound mixing before AI tools.
Yeah. Ugh. The Polaroid melting shot in the microwave took over a month to complete and caused Jeremy Saulnier to have to reach out to 40 different people to get it finalized.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, filming inside a microwave while it's actually going can be tricky because you don't want to damage the camera.
That makes sense, yeah. Mirror refracting device was used for the finale to mimic the headlights approaching the house.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that trick done before a lot. By the way, that's a popular way of simulating headlights driving by in daytime scenes.
Yeah.
Is you get a really strong reflector and you spin it. So like if you're in like, say, a diner, so you could just get that little light pass every now and then. You just slowly spin it and it points the sun.
That makes sense.
It's very convincing.
Yeah. And finally, the legacy shot at the end as we pan over the Cleland's family. That was his legacy shot because he wanted it to be the completion of both seeing them go through the stages of the family, having it end with William, and then having William throw the gun at the end was the conclusion to the Clelands.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So what are your final thoughts on 2013's Blue Ruin?
Did you get anything about how they thought it was going to be their last film or the last film they did? Oh, because that was on the Wikipedia.
Yeah. No, I didn't get that. They didn't mention that commentary.
I want to mention that real quick because that's something that really stuck with me. When they wanted to make this movie, they kind of felt like they hadn't had the success that they would have liked with their first film, which, I mean, I don't blame them for being disappointed. The friggin' Murder Party, such a great film.
Yeah.
But according to this, it said the two wanted to make one last film together, Saulnier said. Quote, "We embraced the fact that we had to wrap up this childhood arc, this insane fantasy of wanting to be filmmakers and just make a film that was right and true." The concept of a revenge story appealed to Saulnier, who said it was, quote, "just about grounding the film in a very mundane scenario that needed so little exposition." The film's plot also serves as a critique for Saulnier of films that he enjoyed growing up, in particular violent crime movies of the early 2010s that, quote, "made him miserable." And he said, quote, "couldn't do a film that was akin to those awesome genre spectacles of my youth in said climate." So they thought that this might be their last. The last, although not nearly to the level of success.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not made a Hollywood movie. I don't know that I will. I don't know that I care to, but that's whatever. I mean, you know, when somebody knocks on your door with a bag full of money, we'll see how I actually feel.
Fair enough.
But when I made Depression, the movie, I actually thought that was probably going to be my last film ever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, so I'm just going to make whatever I want. And it was the first film I made that was substantially financially successful, which made no sense compared to the rest of the prior of my entire career. So I really identify with this, like the last one. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, everybody likes what you're doing now. Keep doing it.
Yeah, keep doing it.
So Blue Ruin's a buy it.
Yeah.
Cruel irony that you can't get a Blu-ray easily.
Yeah.
But it's worth owning if you love films.
No.
That's all I got because I've said everything else I need to say about that.
Yeah, same here. Blue Ruin is just it's the takeaway of the non-traditional vengeance film that really focuses on the realism of it. Really just paints a portrait of what it is like to decide you're going to do something and have to stick it out to the end.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I really, really enjoy that. So we always like to end the show with a couple of recommendations. My first one this week is 2007's Death Sentence starring Kevin Bacon. Nick Hume is a mild-mannered executive with a perfect life until one gruesome night he witnesses something that changes him forever. Transformed by grief, Hume eventually comes to the disturbing conclusion that no length is too great when it comes to protecting your family. This movie, I cannot recommend enough. It's basically his death wish, but it is in the sense of breaking down your character to think he can do this vengeance, does the vengeance, and then completely pulls all the retaliation back on.
Yeah, that's a good rec.
Yeah. Second recommendation is 2017 Small Town Crime, which is currently available on Starz and Fandango. An alcoholic ex-cop finds a woman on the roadside who was left for dead. He offers to find the killer pro bono as a private investigator. Her granddad hires him, and things get nasty.
That's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
I remember I bought that on Blu-ray right after we finished watching it together.
Yeah, same here.
Such a good film.
Yeah, Small Town Crime, cannot recommend that enough. What's your recommendation, sir?
Well, I actually have two this week because I really was thinking about it.
Okay.
And I have two movies that kind of gave me a similar feel but didn't give me a similar feel. Mm-hmm. The first one is 2011's Killer Joe.
Good one, yes.
I love Killer Joe. It's by William Friedkin,
yes,
famous for The Exorcist. But the description is, when a debt puts a young man's life in danger, he turns to putting a hit out on his evil mother in order to collect insurance. I feel like that movie has a great amount of dread.
Yeah.
It's really highly stylized. It's
Matthew
not nearly
McConaughey is so fucking scary.
Yeah, no, he's terrifying. It's not nearly as realistic, but really good.
Yeah.
But then the other one, and this is one that I like because it makes me sick to my stomach a little bit, is 2017's Good Time.
Good Time is good.
And that stars Robert Pattinson.
Yep.
It's from the directing team who I believe went on to do Uncut Gems, which is another movie that makes me sick to my stomach.
Safdie brothers?
The Safdie brothers. After a botched bank robbery lands his younger brother in prison, Connie Nikas embarks on a twisted odyssey through New York City's underworld to get his brother Nick out of jail.
Line up a light watch after that one because it's going to hit you right in the fucking stomach.
You'll be fine.
But
so
Good Time's a great movie, though.
Those
and also,
are mine, yeah.
Honorable mentions, any of Saulnier's filmography in regards to Green Room, Rebel Ridge. You said Hold the Dark's fantastic.
I really liked it, yeah.
I cannot recommend Green Room enough. Green Room may be my favorite of his so far.
It's really phenomenal.
It was originally going to be this episode, by the way, but unfortunately, Green Room is fucking available nowhere right now.
I saw it 3 times in the theater.
I saw it once with you.
3 times.
We went to see that in Beaver Creek. Yeah, that was at the.
I went back to see it in Beaver Creek 2 more times.
That's awesome.
So no, that's a phenomenal film. So before we get out of here, I do want to remind everybody, if you want to send us an email, suggest something you want us to check out or talk about a little bit, you can email us at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com or go to doyouevenmovie.com. There are all kinds of social media things in the description or show notes. You can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you want to find us. We do look forward to hearing from you guys. So send us an email or go to doyouevenmovie.com for any and all information about the show.
And that leads us into actually what we're talking about next week, because this was a email request. We are going to be diving into 1985's Tough Turf, which will be a first-time watch for you.
First time for me.
Currently available on Plex, Pluto, Tubi, and Prime.
Yes, so make sure you check that out.
Yes,
so you guys can join me for the first time. And let's hope Dave doesn't do us wrong.
It's not going to be a long Good Friday, I'll promise you that much.
You know, looking back, I do like that movie, but boy, was it a long Good Friday.
I think you just need to check out my new 4K from Criterion.
I mean, I've got the system for it.
Yes, you do.
But, well, with that all being said, I guess all that's left to say, kids, is go see Hard Eyes.
Yes.
And we will see
you next Tuesday.
Probably.